A disclaimer. While in this piece, I will be making a largely utilitarian argument for the folk faith. Don't let my writing here construe my faith as materialistic or motivated by cultural politics. I believe in the folk faith because it is true. End of story. On the other hand, I have many Christian friends whom I adore and respect, and harbor no grudge against their faith. I have never been a Christian. I have no axe to grind with a childhood church, etc. This is my sincere analysis of the cultural impact of these two beliefs as I have witnessed them. I look forward to a discussion this piece will prompt. The decline of Christian ethics into progressivism. Christianity is universalizing, meaning it inherently rejects a spiritual dimension to a folkish or regional identity. A Christian converted 2 minutes ago across the world is as much a Christian as one from a village that has been faithful for 20 generations. It carries with it no innate protection of one's homeland or customs as, by its doctrine, all believers are one. Christianity also rejects kleos, the pursuit of worldly glory or attainment, as vain or contrary to the spiritual. The spirit is individual, and one's bloodline is not a component to faith. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust, compared to the perception of life as continuing lineage from ancestors to descendants, in a living line of blood and of tradition. As pointed out by the exemplary work of my fellow pagan vitalist, The Ark, Flesh and Fire, on his YouTube channel, Christianity and secular liberalism naturally conclude in progressivism, which merely takes the priors of disconnect from lineage, selflessness, and responsibility to the other to the degree of becoming fanatical and self-destructive. Do not think that I have come to bring peace to the world. No, I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. I came to set sons against their fathers, daughters against their mothers, daughters-in-law against their mothers-in-law. Your worst enemies will be the members of your own family. Matthew 10:35. The Troth is a living, folk, and honor-oriented alternative to what are ultimately foreign biblical values. Being first centered in the family, folk, and culture, the Troth and analogous pagan traditions from elsewhere in Europe naturally refutes the shortcomings of universalism and outgroup preference. Contrary to the assertions of more militant pastors, pagans do not consider random cruelty or greed as values. True ethics place tremendous importance on generosity to guests, given the necessity of the host and guest relationship in European customs and history. But contrary to Christianity, this is not at the expense of one's own self or kin. Rather, the true ethic orients the family as the first responsibility of the moral actor, extending outwards from that core to the tribe, fealty to one's superior in the hierarchy, and, at the very reaches, the stranger. Hail to the giver, a guest has come. Where shall the stranger sit? Swift shall he be who, with swords shall try the proof of his might to make. Havamal, stanza 2. This is a fundamental change of attitude, not only from the bleeding heart liberalism, but the Christian ethics that the modern sickly iteration of charity comes from. The job of a moral person is their own family first and foremost, extending to the cultural level, the peace and prosperity and safety of one's own nation and people comes first. Rather than the ascetic, the true ethic emphasizes the heroic. Rather than emphasizing above all sacrifice, the true ethic emphasizes aspiration. Where one prioritizes the denial of the world, the other exemplifies great deeds. Even generosity is seen as a display of honor. Germanic chieftains were referred to as ring breakers because it was a point of pride to be able to expend wealth readily. Being miserly wasn't just seen as being a bad sovereign, but a sign of insecurity about one's ability to garner wealth. An open hand reflects well on the giver, in the sight of both men and gods. The son of a king shall be silent and wise, and bold in battle as well. Bravely and gladly a man shall go, till the day of his death is come. Havamal, stanza 15. As the above passage highlights, the idealized attitude of the aristocrat is confident, joyous, and a wise leader of men. Between medieval preserved texts such as the Eddas and Sagas and older works from cousin traditions such as the Homeric and even Vedic traditions, there is at least as rich a moral tradition for the troth to root in as compared to a Christian tradition. Building from that, the works of modern groups heeding the troth, such as the Nine Noble Virtues, modern thinkers who are pagan in spirit if not in practice, such as Nietzsche, and the growing body of work within our own sphere today in the solar and vitalist movements, the folkish and vital honor-based tradition can set down deep roots and extend into a broad, internally consistent, and inheritable tradition for our descendants to adopt. True folk stand to benefit from acknowledging the history and accomplishments of Christian Europe, rather than skipping the centuries of history and generations of ancestors. The concept of chivalry is an example of this process, of a Christian modernization and refinement of the Mannerbund into a social institution which scales up individual warrior bands into brotherhoods which can be in the service of a greater whole, and cultivate a warrior aristocracy from the population. Works such as The Germanicization of Early Christianity by James C. Russell go into even greater depths about how this knightly tradition is more pagan than Christian, but that is a topic which deserves its own piece. The art, architecture, and thought of the Christian period can be understood as an epoch of the European spirit, which waxed, waned, and succumbed to its contradictions. In the social vacuum created by the toppling of progressive social hegemony, with the infighting between hundreds of denominations which Christians inevitably encounter, there is tremendous room for the folk faith to become more established, more coherent, and maybe though not a central cultural force, at least a significant, visible, and vital subculture. Not a counterculture, which exists to reject either secular liberalism or Christianity, but a freestanding and self-confident culture and identity which readily acknowledges the successes and shortcomings of both. This ethic being rooted in an organic, life-affirming, and aspirational personal and social doctrine of seeking the highest.